Let me bring in Marcus Hayes. He covers this. This is his job, Philadelphia Inquirer columnist. And Marcus, I saw the headline, not that you wrote the headline. Ben Simmons comes crawling back to the Sixers to save money, if not face. All right, where are we in this situation with Ben Simmons and the 76ers?
Actually, I did write that headline. I didn't know it would stand, but it passed muster, I guess. I think we're in a spot where the Sixers have a guy they would like to trade, but they would like to get value for him. And I think the only way that happens is if Ben Simmons actually plays games, like McLovin said, and proves that, okay, maybe I'm a little bit better player. I will be invested. I will be professional. Because the worst thing he could do, he did. He said, not only will I not play hard for you and take risks on the court, I will not be accountable for it afterward. And at the first whiff of controversy, I'm going to take my ball and go home. That I think Rich Paul and Clutch Sports and Ben Simmons understand now that he has to rebuild his image and prove that he's worth something, because the Sixers right now probably couldn't get very much for him at all. Because what happens if he does the same thing next year for another team and they're in the same situation?
How much of this is just, hey, I'm losing a lot of money and this holdout is not working?
I'd say if there were more than 100%, it would be more than 100%. This is all about, you have to realize who Ben Simmons is. He came to LSU because the NBA required you at that point to go to LSU. There weren't avenues that exist now to avoid 1 year of college, played indifferently, didn't go to class, and told everyone, I'm just here so I don't get fined, like Marshawn Lynch, So he took that year, he wasted that year of his teammates' time, his coach's time, LSU scholarship money, so he could get to the point where he could make more money. He knew he was talented. He knew he was going to be the number one overall pick. I said all that to say, Ben Simmons only cares about money. That's it. He wants to make as much money as quickly as possible. He doesn't care who for. He doesn't care if he wins. He doesn't care, how he makes it. He just wants to make that money, be famous, be photographed at Wimbledon, and be Ben Simmons. And it's kind of I guess it's kind of an indication of who we are in our time.
But it just doesn't work in that city. There are other cities where it can work.
Right.
It doesn't work there. I just can't imagine what the local reaction is going to be that first game, and like he misses a free throw or he won't take a three here. That's a tough audience, man. Tough audience, Marcus.
There's nowhere like it for all four sports. That's the thing. Like, there's nothing like the intensity and passion in Philadelphia for all four sports in any town, except maybe Boston. Boston's rough too. He would have a hard time selling this in Boston. But that there were times when the Patriots could get away with anything. So it'll be ugly, but it also depends on how he comports himself over the next couple of weeks. If he's recalcitrant, if he's humble, if he is accessible, if he asks for forgiveness, nobody forgives like Philadelphia, especially if you're going to be in their town. If you're going to be one of them, then Philadelphia will take you back and worship you, maybe more so than if you'd succeeded. If Ben Simmons says, you know what, you guys were right, I was wrong, I'm going to take threes, I'm going to help win, I'll play power forward if I have to, and they win, he'll be as popular as Nick Foles.
But is he capable of doing that?
I don't know.
See, that's
I
the
don't
key.
know. That he's just been such a weird kid. I remember he was incredibly impressive at the pre-draft media availability. He made sure that he was the last person to show up at the hotel in New York the year he was drafted, to show up in the ballroom. He came with an entourage. He dressed like a businessman. He acted like a businessman. It was almost as if he was a movie character. I believe that that's how he lives his life. Like he's in a movie, like it's not real, like there's really no accountability, and that he can do no wrong because he's writing the script. So I don't know if his script will ever include any sort of mea culpa stuff.
What is his value around the league? Is that what this comes down to, that their teams, the rest of the league doesn't value him the way the Sixers think they should value him?
Well, you have to understand the Sixers' perspective as it pertains to Joel Embiid's window. If you think that Joel Embiid can win for the next 3 to 5 years before his body collapses because he gets hurt all the time,
Mm-hmm.
if that's his window, you have to complement him with players who are going to help win in that window, because that's going to be it for a long time. There might not be a player in the second tier of players who can help them win the way Ben Simmons can win right now, even if you moved him to power forward, which is his natural position anyway. You know, he's more Draymond Green than he is Chris Paul. So all that said, the Sixers believe they have to get a solid second piece that could be a first piece, because Joel Embiid gets hurt all the time, to replace Ben Simmons. And they can't afford to taking anything less would be forfeiting this window. So yes, they overvalue Ben Simmons because of the way they frame it is, how can we win in this window with Joel Embiid?
He's Marcus Hayes, the Philadelphia Inquirer columnist. We're talking about Ben Simmons reporting back to the Philadelphia 76ers. I've mentioned this a couple of times, and maybe this has to do with their backgrounds. Giannis comes over here. He's not pampered. He is an unknown. He fights for everything. And he's not afraid of failure, Marcus. Like, he'll go to the line, and his free throw shooting is worse than mine. His three-point shooting is worse than mine. But he never stops. He still keeps playing. Ben has a fear of failure, being embarrassed, where Giannis doesn't. And to me, that's a big difference in Giannis is never going to stop. He's always trying. He plays hard. And Ben, it feels like he goes, oh, you know, I've been pampered. I don't want to be embarrassed here. I don't want to be on social media here, whereas Giannis doesn't give a damn about that.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. The background is everything. Ben reminds me a lot of a Kobe Bryant without the heart. He was, you know, he's an international, sophisticated, great-looking, well-presented, smart guy who was raised by a international professional basketball player in the lap of luxury with a lot of fame. The difference between Kobe and Ben is Ben thinks that he's arrived. Kobe wanted to be Mike. Giannis wants to be the best player he can be. I can't tell you the depth of my admiration for Giannis, watching him warm up, watching his pregame routine, watching him airball threes and free throws. It's just, and he's going to take them in the game, and he's going to airball them in the game. Yeah. But for Giannis, it's the next step. It's the next play. It's how can I win? For Ben Simmons, it's all about style. It's all about how do I look? It's all about doing it my way, because one guy's spoiled and one guy isn't.
If I ask Doc Rivers and ask him for an honest answer, do you want Ben Simmons back? What do you think Doc says?
Absolutely. I mean, he would love to have Ben Simmons in any iteration because it helps win regular season games. And Doc's a brilliant coach. I think that he thinks he can win despite Ben Simmons' deficiencies, which might mean moving Ben Simmons off the point again. You remember the Philadelphia 76ers did that against the Toronto Raptors and put Jimmy Butler at the point, and it worked because Ben Simmons is a gifted power forward. He's a Hall of Fame power forward. You can call him an all-star point guard, but he's not. He's not one of the top, 10 point guards in the league as you define true point guards. So that said, I don't know, maybe not the top 10, maybe not the top 6 or 7. But the point is, Doc Rivers believes he can win with Ben Simmons because Ben Simmons is really good. He's an elite perimeter defender. He's an excellent rebounder. He could be even better rebounder, as Joel Embiid mentioned. And he runs the fast break almost as well as anybody in the NBA, in part because like Giannis, it only takes him 3 steps to get from free throw line to free throw line. So, yeah, Doc Rivers would love to have Ben Simmons back. And imagine if Doc Rivers is the coach that wins with Ben Simmons and breaks through with Ben Simmons. I mean, Doc Rivers is probably a Hall of Fame coach already. This would be, the cherry on top for his career.
Would you rather have Ben or Kyrie?
We had that conversation a lot here in the last week. If Ben is on your team and shows up, he's probably more valuable than Kyrie because you don't know if Kyrie's not going to show up. And you don't know how hard he's going to play. And you don't know how hurt he's going to play. So Kyrie is the ultimate wild card. I mean, I contended when Kyrie was in Cleveland, LeBron James might have been the second best player on that team. The second most skilled player offensively anyway on that team. Kyrie Irving is a special entity, but he's special in other ways too.
Kyrie is Kanye West. Like there's brilliance, but there's unpredictability and crazy and calculated at the same time.
Well, that's the thing. I'm not sure they calculate as much as I think they recover sometimes, and we allow them to recover. But, they are so narcissistic. The world revolves around them to such a degree that they completely lack perspective. The same thing is true of Ben to a degree, and Carson Wentz here in Philadelphia. The utter lack of self-awareness and humility among those four people is astonishing. But again, it might be a sign of the times we live in, where social media can make you a star if you're just, clever with 240 characters.
Great insight. Really appreciate your time, Marcus. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be following. We'll be following those headlines you're writing.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Thanks, guys.
That's Marcus Hayes, Philadelphia Inquirer columnist.